This is his 60th year of service.
Wow.
Jim, you're really not the most senior guy today. But I want you to think about it. I want to say a few words, and I hope I don't get too choked up. But he's been here all but 3 years of this company. Think about it. I mean, he came in 1953, and a lot has changed since then. Would you agree with that?
Yes, sir.
When I think of the company that we enjoy today, I think of the company when I came to work in '81. It's nothing like it. But the company that we had in 1981 is nothing like the company in 1953. I've been asking a lot of questions lately about the old days, and he said many times we could have and should have gone out of business many times. In fact, after 4 years of being in operation, our total profits was negative $6,432. After 4 years being in business, we've lost $6,400. So we were on the brink of going out of business the whole time. This is a struggle just to survive. And so anyway, so I was thinking about what was it like back then, and I want to share some things with you. One is something I got out of a newspaper, an old Southeastern newspaper. In 1953, late 1953, we opened up Darlington. He was our first terminal manager. So I'm just going to read a little bit from this Southeastern newspaper. It was actually in Darlington initially, not Florence, but the Darlington terminal, which was in existence for 6 months before it moved to Florence, boasted 1 employee, 1 power unit, 1 straight truck, and 2 trailers. This operation was kept running smoothly by the terminal manager, W.D. Castles Jr., now company vice president. As Bill recalls, one of the first employees was 25-year-old Odell Oakley. He would personally unload every piece of freight every day and load it out for delivery. Odell would deliver the pedal freight, and he would deliver the city freight. Odell wanted his job so badly that he walked from his home in Florence to Darlington each morning and back each evening after driving a truck all day. That is a walk of 20 miles every day.
Wow.
When the terminal was first moved to Florence, it occupied an old mess hall at the Army Air Base. It was the only building we could find with a concrete floor, and fortunately it was dock high. That was part of the good old days. I asked him a couple of months ago, I said, what was your day typical like in the 50s? When you were back in Columbia. And so I wrote some notes down. We were in Atlanta Bread. I don't know if you remember this now. He said, well, I've come to work in a shirt and tie because I was the only sales rep in the company. And the first thing we do, the drivers the night before, they put all the delivery receipts and money in an envelope, and so they would be left. The next morning you come in, the first thing he would do was undo the envelopes and do the counting of the, check the drivers in, so to speak, and do all that kind of stuff, all the administrative. And then he would help in the office and answer phones, and then he would go out and make sales calls. And then at lunchtime he'd come back in because oftentimes he had to go pick up freight if they were needing another driver. If they didn't, he'd go back out and make more sales calls. Then he'd come in the evening, and Mr. Drinkard, who was Duke Drinkard, his daddy was one of the original employees, and his daddy would do a lot of things, but one of the things he would do was rate the bills at night, and Dad was on a typewriter cutting the freight bills on a typewriter after Mr. Drinkard would rate them. When that process was through, Mr. Drinkard would relieve my father, and my father would go put his work clothes, go out in the warehouse, and finish doing the loading of the trucks and work with them, and that'd go about 9 o'clock at night. This is every day, So anyway, a little choked up here, but then they'd have to see if there needed to be a load to go to Savannah or Florence that night, and oftentimes they then would drive a truck, and that would be Mr. Drinkard too. And Charlie Sharp. He very specifically mentioned those two in my notes. He said sometimes about twice a month he would have to turn Atlanta at night. Now keep in mind, there's no interstates during this time. So you're driving through Salute and all those towns, and it would take all night to get there and back. And when that happened, he then would start the day over again, and he'd work a 36-hour shift. He said he did that about twice a month. So
that's why I'm so scrawny today.
But he quickly pointed out, he said, but everybody did that. This is my notes. He said, everybody did that. This wasn't just me. And he specifically said, Mr. Drinkard did that, Charlie Sharp did that. Is that true, Charlie?
That's true.
We've got to have Charlie here. And he said, it's what we did to survive. He said, and people did it out of loyalty to my grandfather and his father. And so anyway, so that's the good old days. All right, lost my notes. So that's the 50s. You know, it was the get her done thing, get the last load to Atlanta, do what it takes to survive. In the 60s, the company started growing a little bit, started making a little money, and he was a vice president. You know, it was a very small company. There was only really Mr. Drinker and Dad and my granddad really in leadership. And that's all he needed. It was a very, very small company. But I like it. He was like a vice president of operations kind of thing. And but they were having to make all the decisions, make all the hires. He made a point. He said we had to hire really, really good managers because think about it. There's no email, there's no web connect, there's no GoToMeeting, there's no video training. You got these standalone. So you have to have strong managers. And so he said we had to go and hire the best managers in each town. So he'd go to the Atlantas of the world and say who's the best manager. And he also said we're too small to grow our own managers back then like we do now. So we'd go to Atlanta and say, who's the best manager in town? And they would say, Hoyt Watson of Bowman. Many of you remember Hoyt Watson was here for decades. They said, but you'll never get it. And so what Dad would go and meet with Hoyt Watson, and it wasn't long after that he was working for Southeastern. And he made a comment, he said, Hoyt Watson had more employees in his Bowman Service Center than we did in our company. So why he would come to this, this fledgling company. Well, I think I know why. It was the humble servant leadership of our chairman and the ability to connect. And so he hired the Dick Thompsons of the world, the J.B. Owens of the world, the Flav Edwards. He was a VP of operations at his other company, but Dad was to lure him away to become our Charlotte manager. And so that was the 60s. And when he came into the 70s, he was really functioning more as the president and chief operating officer. Again, a small company, but growing and bigger now and more complex. But also during the 70s, in addition to being our president and chief operating officer, he was also very active in our industry, leading the American Truck Association. He was actually the first person from South Carolina to be the chair of ATA, and he did that in 1977. Now, what was interesting about that, and important, is that deregulation was coming in 1980. And so in the late 70s, they were having the Senate hearings about whether to deregulate or not. And I remember as a freshman in college, my sister and I flew to Washington because my dad was appearing in front of the Senate Transportation Committee, and Ted Kennedy was the chair, and it was a very aggressive, as Ted Kennedy could be. But it was really interesting to watch my dad in front of the Senate hearing, but he was leading our industry and not just our company. He saw deregulation coming. So what he did was I don't want to get too long-winded here, but before deregulation, we all charged the same price, okay? There was no differentiation in prices. Everybody was fixed, okay? So you didn't have a pricing model. There was no pricing department, okay? He saw deregulation coming, meaning we're going to have to have cost and price to be able to quote discounts. And so he went out and bought the Thompson system, the Tommy Thompson costing system in 1977. We got it in place in our company 3 years before deregulation. He also went out and recruited a guy named Bud Dressel, who worked for another truck line who used the Thompson system, really high caliber guy, to come in and be our VP operations. So we were set through his vision and through his leadership to go in through deregulation. Well, deregulation did happen in 1980, and it was slowly getting started. On 84, we had some major events happen. Bud Dressel, at a young age, in the early 50s, dropped dead of a heart attack in January of 1984. 6 months later, Tom Drinker, Duke's dad, died of a heart attack, which were the only two officers we had in the company. And so all of a sudden, we're not sitting so prepared for deregulation. So, so what had to happen then is he had to go out with his philosophy of find the best person. And that's when he approached Paul Taylor, who we happen to have here. And I know he doesn't want to be pointed out. But Paul was the senior VP of operations at Carolina Freight, a company probably 10 times our size. He was slated to be the next president. We were just a little gnat in the trucking world compared to Carolina. Why he would come to work for Southeastern? Well, he'll tell you quickly he felt led by God to come here, and we were blessed by that. I imagine also part of it was the connection he had with my father, again with that gentle, humble servant leadership. But however it came about, and God was certainly involved, Mr. Taylor comes, and now Dad's in the 80s and since then has now functioned as a true CEO. And and leading the company with his hand on the wheels to today to almost a $1 billion company. So, so you think about the 50s, it's do what you need to get it done. Take a load at Atlanta. 60s, it's it's the VP operations kind of role. 70s, it's the president, chief operating officer, and then the 80s on, it's the chief executive officer. Now, what's neat about that, if you think about it, is it takes a special person to be able to do all those kind of roles. You can take somebody who can do some of those roles, but to be able to be the guy that can sleep with a pistol on his pillow, and be the guy who can that can guide and support a professional president like Paul Taylor, and not get too much involved and mess things up. And seriously, it's a skill. It's a gift to know how to. You need some training on that now, Mr. Taylor. But I'm going to close this up now. But I guess perhaps I think the biggest contribution that I'm the most grateful for is the culture you've created here, and your granddad and others, and Paul Taylor and Ricky Buren and all the people that came before us. But that culture of caring about people, integrity, faith-based, all those things. And so we love you.
This particular service award presentation sure took a different turn. Well, I can't tell you how much I appreciate everything here today. You folks are our family. Always have been, always will be. And we appreciate every one of you. I just think, somebody said one day, and I just like this phrase, but say when you get up to retirement age or close to it, you're over the hill. And I think sometimes I feel like I'm not over the hill, I'm over the hill and down the slope. But you've really picked me back up today and sent me back up to the top, and I thank you for that. It's just so appreciated. I was just dumbfounded, and I looked out here a little while ago, and you probably saw astonishment. I started picking up grandchildren and old friends. Charlie Sharp, and I'm wondering what in the world is going on. But I do thank you, and I do appreciate it, and since it's apparent now that my name is on the list for service awards, I can't wait to see what 65 and 70 are going to do.